Can a toxic workplace ever truly be fixed? This is the big question that many boards and chief execs have asked me over the years. The short answer is yes, but it doesn't happen overnight. Culture change is one of the slowest changes that you can embark on, and it requires tenacity and commitment and vision. My name's Lucy, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to share 3 shifts that I've seen work when leaders really put their shoulder to the grindstone. No, when leaders really put their shoulder to the wheel and they're really committed to making culture change happen. If you're wondering whether culture change can ever truly be possible, then it's these 3 steps that are where you should begin. So the first shift is leadership modelling, so role modelling by the leader of the team. Because when the leader starts to demonstrate that change is happening, that things are different, then change will start to trickle down throughout the organisation. So, for example, if you've had a culture where it's individuals get blamed for mistakes and there's a blame culture, if the leader wants to change that, they can role model a different way of looking for learning opportunities from things that went wrong, rather than trying to pin the blame on an individual or on a team. I've seen this time and time again, that culture flows top down and teams will mirror what leaders do, not what they say. Another example is if leaders model that they have vulnerability or that they don't have all the answers, then it becomes permitted for teams to open up about issues where they don't know everything, and they can share their own vulnerabilities. So that again will show a shift in culture where you don't have to be pretending to be perfect all the time. You can be open about your vulnerabilities. Trust is built when leaders model the culture that they want to see. The second shift is when leaders start to introduce radical transparency and communication. I am a passionate believer in effective communication being at the heart of all good culture. Toxic culture thrives in silence, in rumour, in silos, when people don't know what's going on and rumours start to be rife in those silences. And if you can build a culture where people are open about what's going on, there are mechanisms for communicating between teams, where teams are encouraged to work together and share what's happening, find solutions to issues together, then you will really start to see some shifts in the workplace culture. Often I've seen organisations where leaders resist sharing financial information openly with their teams, and so budgets are held at some high level of management rather than being shared openly with teams. And then when things go wrong and there's a downturn, or things go right and there's a change because you've got more money than you thought you had maybe, it's hard to respond quickly then, because people don't know the context and they haven't been kept up to date by their leaders. So I would really encourage being open and honest and transparent about the financial situation of your organisation. Your people are in this with you, and they shouldn't be feared. It shouldn't be a thing of fear to share information with them. The third shift is something I'm passionate about and I've been working most of my career on, which is about active inclusivity. And by that I mean making changes in your teams so that underrepresented groups of individuals, whether that's staff members of colour, if it's people with disabilities, or women, it depends on your context who the underrepresented groups are, but making an active choice to listen to their perspectives, include them in decision making, make sure that all the voices you're hearing from your team members aren't just one subset of the team, even if that is overrepresented. And again, that will build trust, but it will also crucially help you hear different perspectives from across different parts of your cohort of your staff. Put in place mechanisms to actively elevate people who have previously been overlooked. So make sure, if you're in a charity setting, make sure you've got people with lived experience of your cause at all levels of your organisation, not just in a reference group. Make sure they're on the board, that they're in the leadership team, that you're making active routes to recruit people with personal experience of your cause at all levels. Boards should ensure diverse representation and also safe routes for feedback, so that there's a mechanism for feedback from all parts of your organisation and all different groups. Working to improve inclusivity will at the same time reduce toxicity, because toxic culture will reduce when belonging grows. So this culture shift will happen as you put those mechanisms in place. Now, I said I was going to share 3 shifts, but I'm going to add in a bonus 4th one for boards, and that's around putting in place the mechanisms so you know what's going on. So whether that's staff surveys, external reviews, how are you going to know that the culture is shifting if you're on the board and you're not in the day-to-day? So having external reference points, and something like a staff survey will give you that, because if you've got an anonymous survey that staff are filling in online, you can have regular, maybe that's annually, or it can be a pulse. Lots of organisations do much more regular pulse checks with their staff. So you can find out what's going on, and you can see then if the culture shift that you're working towards is truly happening, and get people to tell you. Your staff will trust it more sometimes if this is externally run. I find that as a consultant, I go into organisations, people tell me all kinds of things that are going on. They wouldn't tell their managers, certainly wouldn't tell their board. Having an external person like me, and I'm open to work as always, will really help. So that's a sort of 4th bonus point that I wanted to make. Let me tell you a story about a client that I had that was experiencing a very toxic, difficult workplace environment. There'd been complaints from the staff, really serious complaints. And the board and the leadership team brought me in, and I worked with a colleague together as external assessors, well, not assessors, but external trusted people to give an objective view of what was happening. And we ran a series of one-to-one conversations and small focus groups with staff members. We put in place a survey that was anonymised, that people could share what was happening. And then we gathered all of that information together to feed back to the board and to the leadership team about what was really happening. And there were some pretty stark findings in that report. And I remember having to look in the eye of the chair of the board of trustees and tell them some stark truths about what was going on in that organisation. But I like to think that that opening up of the truth and people being able to tell me and my colleague what was happening, I like to think that really helped, and I hope it did, because then we were able to put together an action plan to tackle some of the issues that people had told me. So I don't think that without shining a light on the realities of what was happening in the day-to-day, in that organisation, I don't think anything would have moved. I think people would have carried on leaving unhappily, and they were experiencing high levels of turnover and losing all of that goodwill and all of that knowledge. That organisational history was being lost, and then all of the expense of recruiting and onboarding new people all the time. So I think that having an external pair of eyes on some of these issues can really help if you're trying to implement a culture shift in your organisation. So a toxic workplace can certainly be fixed, but only if leaders are willing to really get stuck in and make things change. So it requires persistence, it requires prioritising and true leadership to change a toxic culture. What I would recommend to leaders is start by modelling the culture that you wish to see. So as an example, if you want to see your teams working better together, role model working better with your colleagues and fellow directors. Don't look like you don't get on, look like you do get on, and look like that you're working well together. That will send a very powerful message about team working in your organisation. Build trust by implementing that radical transparency that I talked about, and also build in mechanisms to create inclusivity and belonging, particularly for minoritised groups within your workforce. Change starts at the top, and I wish you all the best if you're a leader listening to this today and looking towards implementing change. What has stood out for you? Let me know in the comments. And if your board or your leadership team wants to start this culture change reset journey, then that's exactly what I do through my consultancy Change Out. So I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to work with me. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.